In today's note, we're going to be learning how to use a TVM solver to help us solve future and present value compound interest questions. Normally we'd be using a graphing calculator, but if we don't have a graphing calculator, we can use an online version that we can see over here to the right. If you Google GeoGebra, you can see it up here, GeoGebra, GeoGebra TVM solver. This should be one of the main links that pops up. You click on it. And the only thing you may have to click on is a little, there's maybe a green or a kind of a refresh button that pops up here, and you just have to click that and you'll get started using the TVM solver. So basically what the TVM solver does is it calculates or does the compound interest calculations for you. You just need to enter in the key pieces of information based on whatever your scenario is. So we're going to learn what each letter represents, and we're going to run through an example and see how it gets us the same answer. So our N value, N represents the term of the investment or loan, or basically it's the number of periods. So we had to calculate this already previously. This was the number of years multiplied by the compound number. So again, that's why it's important to know, what does annually mean, how many times a year does annually mean, how many times a year does weekly mean. Not that it's just once a week, but that it means 52. So again, you may have to refer back to your previous note. Percent represents the interest rate. The key thing here, it's the interest rate as a percent. In the previous questions, we had to turn it into a decimal and then divide it by the compound number. Here, we just enter the percent. The TVM solver will do the rest for us. PV is the present value or principal, so a little bit more straightforward. PMT represents the amount of regular payments. PMT can equal 0 if there are no regular payments. In all of the questions that we would have done so far, there are no regular payments, so we would just leave it as 0. Basically what a regular payment is, that would be something like me saying, if I'm putting $500 into the bank to save, and I'm adding $10 every week. That $10 would be a regular payment. But in all of our questions we've done so far, we've only had it so that there's just one payment going in the beginning, and that's it. FV represents the future value or the final amount. Again, more straightforward. PY is the number of payments per year, and CY is the number of compounding periods per year. In the cases of this, the PY and the CY will be equal, or the same number. PMT at end, we don't need this for the online TVM solver, but for the graphing calculator one you do. Basically, this just means that the payments, if we were making any, are at the end of the payment interval. So that means, for example, at the end of the week or at the end of the month, rather than at the beginning of the week or the beginning of the month, because that does change our answer slightly. So again, we're just going to go through an example. So determine the future value. So it's telling us what we're looking for. Determine the future value of a $500 investment if the annual interest rate is 4.8%, compounded monthly for 3 years. So all of our information is here. We just need to be able to pick it out. So our N value, remember, is the number of years multiplied by the compound number. So 3 times 12 means 36 total compound or total periods. The I percent, or the percent, is 4.8. The PV is 500. That's how much we're starting with. The PMT, we're not making any regular payments. We're just going to leave it at 0. The FV, we don't know. The CY, we do know because it's monthly, so that means 12. And the PY is just going to be the same, so it's going to be 12 as well. And the PMT at the end, we're going to leave it at that, but on our online graphing calculator, we don't need to worry about that. So we have all of our information. Now we need to be able to use the TVM solver. So what we're going to do, we're just going to go to our TVM solver and just enter in our information. So N is 36, I is 4.8, or this percent is 4.8. Present value is $500. Our PMT is 0 because we aren't making a payment. FV, again, we don't know, so I'm going to leave that at 0. Our PY was 12 because our CY was 12. So now that we've entered in all of our information and we're trying to solve for FV, I'm just going to click solve for FV and I get my answer. So my answer is $577.28. So while our TVM solver gives us negative, do not worry about the negative, only worry about the positive or just the number itself. Basically, for our case, what the TVM solver is doing, it basically calculates it as money owed. So basically, if we owe $500 in the beginning, our future amount, we're going to have to owe $577.28, which is why it's negative. So again, don't worry about the sign, just worry about the number. Now, so basically our TVM solver basically did all the calculations for us. We're just going to go through and just do those calculations just for this one question, just to confirm that it is right and we are doing it correctly. So because it's a future value question, we're going to use our main compound interest formula. A equals P 1 plus I to the power of N. Our I value, we do need to calculate this in this case. So the percent as a decimal, 0.048 divided by 12, 0.004. So when I plug it into my formula, we get $500 times 1 plus 0.004 to the power of 36, which is the same n from what we just found. And we should get, in the end, we do get the exact same value when we round. So basically, again, this is just showing us that we do get the same answer whether we do it by calculation or by using the TVM solver. So while it may seem like a similar amount of work for compound interest, present value, or future value, it is going to be helpful to understand how to use the TVM solver for when we move into the next lesson, we start looking at adding regular payments. So it is going to be easier, it is going to be easier to use the TVM solver. But what you can do for practice is go back over the last two notes, the compound interest and the present value, and practice using the TVM solver to become more comfortable with using it and entering the information in, being able to understand what information what we need to pick out and what we need to put into the solver. Hopefully you've already done the questions so you have an answer, so you can use a TVM solver to check your answer to see if you are correct. Again, just avoid that negative. And if you're solving for present value, which we didn't do here, it's basically the same thing in the TVM solver, except you would leave the PV as 0 or blank because we don't know what it is yet, and then we just click solve for PV. Other than that, it's identical in terms of what information needs to be put in.